I met David exactly 2 years ago. A friend introduced us, and on our first date, I was captivated by his gentle smile. He ran his own home renovation business, a man who took pride in creating things with his own hands. I was making ends meet as a freelance graphic designer, and he truly respected my work. About 6 months into our relationship, David quietly opened up about his past. He'd been married before, and his wife had passed away several years earlier. The expression on his face was filled with such deep sadness that I couldn't bring myself to ask for details. He smiled gently, squeezed my hand, and said, "But meeting you has given me the strength to face forward again." Those words made me decide to cherish him even more. A year ago, we got married in a small church. It was a warm, intimate ceremony with just close friends. David's voice trembled slightly as he spoke his vows. "Rachel, meeting you is the greatest fortune of my life. I vow to protect you for the rest of my days." Looking into his earnest eyes, I fought back tears. Our newlywed life was happier than I'd imagined. David left early for work each morning and always came home in the evening. His business dealt mostly in cash, so there weren't many bank transactions, but I saw that as a sign of his honest work ethic. He valued client relationships above all else. On weekends, we'd often go for drives. We didn't set specific destinations, we just drove together. Sometimes along coastal roads, sometimes through small mountain towns. As David drove, he'd talk about his work and our future dreams. I loved watching his profile as he spoke. One Sunday, he invited me to a picnic at a nearby park. He'd packed a basket with homemade sandwiches and fruit, and we spread a blanket on the grass. "You're quite the cook," I said, and he laughed, a bit embarrassed. "I used to make these a lot." Sensing he was thinking about his late wife, I changed the subject. I didn't want to touch on that pain from his past. David had a peculiar habit, he actively avoided talking about the past. When I asked about his family, his childhood, or his previous wife, he'd always smile gently and say, "I don't believe in looking back. I only want to focus on the present and future." At first, it made me a bit sad, but I came to understand it as his way of coping with loss. There was only one time we touched on the subject of children. On the drive home from visiting a friend's baby, I casually started to say, "Maybe someday we could," when David's expression froze for just a moment. He quickly returned to his usual smile, but in that instant, his eyes held something indescribable. "Yes, of course. I'd love to have children with you." He said it, but we didn't continue that conversation. I didn't press him. I assumed not having had children with his late wife must be a painful memory. On our first anniversary, David took me to a fancy restaurant. By candlelight, he took my hand. "Rachel, every single day this year has been pure happiness. I'm truly happy when I'm with you." I never tired of hearing these words, which had become something of a catchphrase for him. "Next year, let's buy a new house. Something bigger, where we can create memories for the two of us, no, for our future family." I nodded at his words. That night, driving home, David steered with one hand and held mine with the other. Streetlights streamed past the car window. I was at the peak of happiness. I was so glad I'd married this man. I believed without question that these peaceful, gentle days would continue forever. As I watched the scenery flow by outside the window, my heart swelled with anticipation for the future. I couldn't possibly have imagined then that this happiness would suddenly come crashing down. As our marriage entered its second year, my work began to take off in surprising ways. My small freelance graphic design business started receiving requests from major companies. What began as small logo design jobs gradually grew into full branding projects, and client referrals led to one new project after another. David was genuinely thrilled about my success. When I worked late into the night at my computer, he'd bring me warm coffee. "Don't push yourself too hard," he'd say, sometimes gently massaging my shoulders. His own renovation business was doing well too. Word of mouth had spread his reputation, and his weekends were fully booked. David's work was primarily cash-based, but I believed this was evidence of his integrity. I thought his dedication to client trust was what made his business successful. Our financial stability let us dream new dreams. One evening, sitting side by side on the living room sofa, David showed me a real estate website. "What do you think of houses in this neighborhood?" He pointed to a single-family home in a quiet residential area. It had a large yard with a lawn where children could run around. "It's lovely," I said, and David looked at me seriously. "Rachel, there's something I want to seriously consider with you." My heart raced. I had a sense of what he was about to say. "It's about having children." David took my hand. "I want to have children with you. I really do." His eyes held an intensity I'd never seen before. Remembering his subtle reaction when we touched on children before, I was a bit surprised. But I was happy he was opening his heart to me. "I want that too," I answered, and David embraced me. "Thank you. You're such a wonderful wife. You'll make the best mother." In his arms, I pictured our happy future. A new house filled with children's laughter. David and me, and our children. I felt I could see the perfect family taking shape. From that night on, we began discussing our future plans in concrete terms. What kind of house to buy, how to design the nursery. Every weekend we visited model homes. David, with his professional perspective, offered various ideas for remodeling the children's room. "We'll put bookshelves here, and a reading nook by the window." The future he painted was always warm and bright. Yet amid these happy days, there were moments when I felt a slight unease. One weekend afternoon, while I was searching for documents in my office, David rushed in looking flustered and quickly grabbed an old photograph from my desk. In that brief glimpse, I thought I saw a younger David in the photo with what looked like several children. "What's that photo of?" I asked, and David showed a momentarily anxious expression. But he quickly returned to his usual smile. "Oh, this? It's an old job site photo. I took it with the family whose house I remodeled. It's part of customer service, you know. We take family photos to commemorate the completion." The explanation seemed natural, and I had no particular reason to doubt it. "Oh, that's a nice touch," I replied. David slipped the photo into his pocket. "But I really should organize these old pictures. I'd rather look to the future than dwell on the past." It was his usual refrain. Not dwelling on the past. I thought of it as one of his charms. A strong person who faced forward in life. After that, David remained a gentle husband. If anything, he seemed even more affectionate toward me than before. When he came home from work, he'd always ask, "How was your day?" and listen to me talk. When I was tired, he'd comfort me with his specialty home cooking. His roast chicken was exquisite, and when that aroma filled the house, any fatigue would vanish. One evening, the day I landed a major project, David had prepared a surprise. When I got home from work, there was a bouquet in the living room and a small box. "Congratulations, Rachel." I opened the box to find a beautiful pendant inside. Simple yet elegant in design, with a small diamond sparkling. "David, this is so expensive," I started to say, but he gently stopped me. "You changed my life. Before I met you, I was." He hesitated briefly. "I was in a dark place. But you brought light to my life. This is my way of saying thank you." His words made my chest warm. Just imagining how much he'd struggled with the pain of losing his late wife made my heart ache. His hands trembled slightly as he fastened the pendant around my neck. Watching our reflection in the mirror, David rested his chin on my shoulder. "Let's be together forever. No matter what." Those words felt slightly heavy somehow. But I took it as a sign of his deep love. A desperate wish never to lose someone precious again. That night, before bed, I stood in front of the mirror admiring the pendant. David was in the shower. I noticed the bathroom drawer was slightly open. It should have contained his personal items. But I deliberately chose not to look. Even between husband and wife, I believed we should respect each other's privacy. Looking back now, if I'd looked in that drawer then, I might have discovered the truth much sooner. But at that moment, I was intoxicated with happiness. A full moon shone outside the window. A new house, a new family, a bright future. It all seemed within reach. That day was a perfect weekend. David had planned a rare distant getaway for us. "Let's just relax together for once," he said. Lately we'd both been busy with work and hadn't spent much quality time alone together. I happily accepted his suggestion. We left early in the morning, heading for a seaside town near the state border. The view from the car window was beautiful, the autumn sunlight painting the road golden. David was in high spirits, driving while playing nostalgic songs. Occasionally, he'd take my hand and squeeze it gently, his hand was warm. "These are the moments when I'm happiest," he said. I felt the same way. We arrived at the seaside restaurant just after 1 o'clock. From the terrace seating, we had a sweeping view of the blue ocean, and the sea breeze pleasantly caressed our cheeks. David ordered fresh seafood, and we enjoyed a delicious meal. "I'm so glad I met you," he said, raising his glass. No matter how many times I heard those words, they made me happy. After the meal, we walked along the beach. Strolling by the water's edge, David talked about the future. This time next year, we might be living in our new house. And who knows, you might be carrying our new life. His words made me blush. That future felt like it was just around the corner. As the sun began to set, we started the drive home. David sat contentedly in the driver's seat and said, "Today was the best day." I felt the same. I believed these peaceful, happy times would continue forever. About an hour after entering the highway, I noticed an unusually large checkpoint ahead. Multiple patrol cars and many vehicles were lined up. "I wonder what happened," I said, and David replied, "Probably an anti-terrorism checkpoint. They've been getting stricter lately." His voice was as calm as usual. As our car approached the checkpoint, a uniformed officer raised his hand signaling us to stop. David quietly brought the car to a halt and rolled down the window. "Good afternoon. This is a routine checkpoint. May I see your driver's license, please?" The officer's voice was polite, but there was an underlying tension. David naturally pulled his license from his wallet and handed it to the officer. "Here you go." There was no sign of anxiety in his manner. I reached for my purse to get my own license ready. The officer took the license and began scanning it with a small device he was carrying. "It's a new system that cross-references with databases from all states," the officer explained. "It's for enhanced anti-terrorism measures and will only take a moment." I didn't think much of it. These checkpoints happened from time to time, and we had nothing to hide. Suddenly, a high-pitched warning sound came from the device. A red light flashed, and the officer's expression changed completely. He stared intently at the device screen, then looked at David's face again. Then he picked up his radio. "Please wait a moment." There was clear agitation in the officer's voice. My heart began pounding hard. Was this some kind of mistake? David sat quietly, but his profile seemed somewhat strained. The officer was reporting something over the radio. Another officer quickly arrived. His name tag read Harris. He was carrying facial recognition equipment. "Excuse me. For verification purposes, we need to do a facial recognition scan." Officer Harris scanned David's face with the device. A few seconds later, a confirmation beep sounded. It's a match, the younger officer reported. Officer Harris operated a tablet, checking the screen repeatedly. His expression was grave. He took a deep breath and looked directly at David. "Mr. David Miller, is that correct?" "Yes, that's right." David's voice tried to sound calm but was slightly trembling. Officer Harris spoke with an expression of disbelief. "According to our records, a death certificate was filed for you 5 years ago." The world stopped. All I could hear was the sound of my own heartbeat. "What are you talking about?" I forced the words out. "My husband is alive. He's right here in front of you." Officer Harris looked at me with sympathetic eyes, then checked the tablet again. "According to California records, you were reported deceased 5 years ago due to a boating accident. The person who filed the report was..." He looked at the screen. "Your ex-wife, Jennifer Miller." "Ex-wife?" My voice cracked. His ex-wife is already deceased. "David, what is this about?" David had gone pale. "This is some kind of mistake. It has to be a system error. I'm alive. I'm right here in front of you." His voice mixed anger with confusion. Officer Harris shook his head. "This is the All-State Integrated Database that went online last month. Data from all states has been consolidated. The possibility of error is extremely low. According to California records, 5 years ago in August, a boating accident occurred off the Pacific coast. You went missing, and after a 3-day search, you were presumed dead. That's ridiculous." David slammed his fist on the dashboard. "I just started a new life on the East Coast. Nobody died." I was confused. Wasn't his ex-wife supposed to be dead? That's what David had told me. But the officer said his ex-wife filed the death certificate. What was going on? "David, is your ex-wife alive? You told me she had passed away." "Rachel, no, this is..." David turned toward me, but his eyes couldn't hide his distress. Officer Harris interrupted. "According to records, a life insurance payout of $500,000 was made. Mr. Miller, this is a serious matter. Would you please accompany us to the police station?" "Insurance money?" My voice was shaking. $500,000 in insurance was paid out. David couldn't answer. His face turned ashen, and his hands trembled on the steering wheel. "Both of you, please exit the vehicle." Officer Harris's voice was gentle but left no room for argument. "We'll discuss the details at the station. We'll also contact your ex-wife." As I got out of the car, my legs felt like they didn't belong to me. David also stumbled as he exited the vehicle. The other officers around us watched with curious eyes. Seated in the back of the patrol car, I looked at David next to me. Who was this person? Someone who was supposed to have died 5 years ago. Someone whose ex-wife was alive. Someone for whom $500,000 in insurance had been collected. Where was the gentle husband I knew, my David? The car started moving. The happy day we just had felt like a lie, fading into the distance. The interrogation room at the police station was cold and sterile. The fluorescent lights hurt my eyes. David and I were taken to separate rooms. Officer Harris and another female detective sat across from me. "Mrs. Miller, please calm down. We need to ask you some questions." I hadn't done anything wrong. So why was I here? "I don't know anything," was all I could manage. "David told me his ex-wife had passed away. I don't know anything beyond that." The female detective looked at me kindly. "You may be a victim here. Please speak honestly. Did you ever find anything suspicious about your husband?" Suspicious things. Hiding that photograph. Being reluctant to talk about his past. Avoiding discussions about children. But I'd thought those were signs of a loved one's pain. "I don't know. He's a kind person. He wouldn't lie to me, even I could hear how hollow my words sounded. Officer Harris opened a file. Let me tell you the details of the death certificate. 5 years ago, on August 15th, a boating accident occurred off Santa Barbara, California. David Miller was reported to have fallen into the ocean and gone missing. The Coast Guard conducted a 3-day search, but no body was found, the female detective continued. Given the currents and weather conditions, survival was deemed extremely unlikely, and death was presumed. A life insurance payment of $500,000 was made to his ex-wife, Jennifer Miller. Officer Harris looked into my eyes. It was apparently also used for the care of their 2 children. Children. My mind went blank. He has children. Tommy and Emma. Currently 10 and 8 years old. The female detective showed me a photograph. 2 children appeared in it. A boy and a girl. Both bore David's features. Especially the boy's eyes, they looked exactly like David's. I leaned back in my chair. He had children. 2 of them. And for 5 years, they'd been living believing their father was dead. Who was the David I knew? We've contacted his ex-wife. She's on her way here now, Officer Harris said. To get to the truth, we'll have you meet face to face. The waiting time felt eternal. Questions swirled through my mind. Why was David declared dead? Why did he come to the East Coast? And why did he lie to me about his ex-wife being deceased? The door opened. A woman in her mid-30s entered. She had chestnut hair tied back and a tired expression. The moment she entered the room, David's voice could be heard from the hallway. At that sound, the woman's face froze. This is Jennifer Miller, the female detective introduced her. Jennifer looked at me but quickly averted her eyes. We'll have you meet with your ex-husband. Another officer brought David in. The moment he saw Jennifer, the air in the room changed. Jennifer turned pale and pressed her back against the wall. Her reaction was pure fear. David. Her voice trembled. Is it really you? You're alive. Anger appeared on David's face. Jenny. Why did you tell such a lie? You declared me dead and fraudulently collected insurance money. Fraudulently? Jennifer's voice grew louder. It was the only way to escape from you. I listened to their exchange as if it were happening to someone else. Escape? From David? Officer Harris stepped between them. Mrs. Miller, please calm down and explain. Why did you file a false death certificate? Jennifer covered her face with trembling hands. After a while, she slowly began to speak. That man. David played the perfect husband in public. But at home, tears overflowed from her eyes. He was violent. To me and to the children. That's a lie. David shouted. I loved you. I never once laid a hand on. You didn't lay a hand on us, Jennifer glared at him. You were smart. You didn't leave evidence. You broke us down psychologically. You berated me in front of the children, destroyed things, screamed at us. But you never hit us. That was your way. The female detective handed Jennifer some water. She took a sip and continued. When I went to the police, they wouldn't take it seriously because there was no evidence. But my brother is a police officer, and he understood my situation. Mark tried to help, but legally there was nothing he could do. So you faked your death, Officer Harris confirmed. A doctor friend helped us, Jennifer looked down. Dr. Sanders. She'd been a DV victim herself once. She issued a certificate of presumed death, and my brother helped with the procedures. The boating accident, I asked. My voice sounded distant. That day, I took David out on the boat, Jennifer's voice was matter-of-fact. Then I dropped him at the dock and told the children, Daddy fell into the ocean. While the Coast Guard was searching, David must have been hiding somewhere. David exploded in rage. It's all lies. I was a loving husband. You drove me out on your own and fraudulently collected the insurance money. Jennifer pulled an envelope from her bag. Look at this. Inside were many photographs. Pictures of the children. But their expressions were completely different from the photo I'd seen earlier. Frightened eyes, strained smiles. Especially the girl, Emma, her eyes held a fear that no young child should possess. These children have been having nightmares for 5 years, Jennifer's voice trembled. Their father's shouting, the sound of things breaking. Tommy still goes to counseling. Emma starts crying when she hears loud noises. I stared at the photographs. David hurt these children. That kind, considerate David. Rachel, Jennifer called my name for the first time. I believe you're a victim too. But please, I'm begging you. See him for who he really is. He plays the perfect person at first. But given time. Shut up. David's voice echoed through the room. In that moment, I saw it. Something cold and dark dwelling in his eyes. An expression I'd never seen before. It was only an instant, but it was definitely there. The medical records Jennifer brought showed 5 years of PTSD treatment for the children. David's past arrest record also came to light. He'd been arrested twice on suspicion of domestic violence, but both cases had been dropped due to insufficient evidence. I was remembering the moments when David had shown intense anger. They were few, but they definitely existed. When he got irritated in traffic, when a restaurant got our order wrong. He'd take a deep breath and quickly return to smiling. But that momentary expression. It was the same as the look in his eyes when he looked at Jennifer now. Officer Harris presented further evidence. The detailed medical records Jennifer had kept. Records of 5 years of PTSD treatment for Tommy and Emma. The therapist's observations detailed the father's controlling behavioral patterns, unpredictable anger, and the deep psychological wounds inflicted on the children. David's past arrest record was also revealed. Twice in California, he'd been arrested on suspicion of domestic violence. But he was cunning. He left no evidence, couldn't be proven based on testimony alone. In the end, both cases were dropped due to insufficient evidence. He's calculating, Jennifer said. He knows how to control his anger. In public, he plays the perfect husband, the perfect father. But inside the home. I traced through my own memories. The moments David suppressed his anger. Perhaps that wasn't emotional control ability but acting. Recently, when I'd been working late, the irritation he'd briefly shown. He'd quickly returned to smiling, but something had been lurking in the depths of those eyes. Rachel, believe me, David pleaded with me. I love you. Our life together is real. I looked at him. What about this person was real, and what was a lie? David, you told me your ex-wife had died. You hid the fact that you had children. How is any of that real? He was at a loss for words. I wanted to forget the past. I wanted to start a new life. You wanted to run from the children, Jennifer interrupted. You ran from responsibility. And now you found a new victim. David's face contorted. You're the one who cornered me. In that moment, he revealed his true nature. An officer stepped between them and restrained him. Seeing this transformation, I was certain. Jennifer had been telling the truth. Several days later, I proceeded with divorce proceedings with a lawyer. David resisted fiercely. He shouted over the phone, sent threatening messages. You're betraying me too, those words were sent repeatedly. That was his true self. Legally, it was a complicated situation. Faking a death certificate was false reporting, but Jennifer was treated sympathetically as a DV victim. David hadn't used a false name, he'd simply been living quietly in a new state. He was investigated as an accomplice to insurance fraud, but he hadn't actually received the insurance money himself. In the end, there was insufficient evidence and no charges were filed. However, David completely lost his social credibility. Clients left one after another, his work disappeared. His reputation in the neighborhood was ruined. He ultimately chose to move to another state. And the court permanently banned him from contacting the children. Tommy and Emma were never told that their father was alive. It was determined that this was best for them. Several months later, I received a letter from Jennifer. "I'm glad you didn't become a victim. Thank you for seeing him for what he really is," it said. She and the children were still living peacefully. Still believing in their father's death, facing their trauma, slowly moving forward. I began living alone in a new apartment. I left the house filled with memories of David. My work was going well, and I gained confidence that I could make it on my own. Sometimes I remember those happy days. But I also know they were an illusion. Looking out the window, the autumn sunset was beautiful. The same kind of sunset as when David and I drove along the coast that day. But now I don't blindly believe. Love is important, but I must not lose the ability to see the truth. I came to understand that real family isn't about blood ties, but about truly protecting one another. Jennifer lied to protect her children. That was a mother's love. I've begun walking a new path in life. I no longer depend on anyone. I stand on my own feet and see the truth with my own eyes. Love may be blind, but now my eyes are open. And I've learned that true happiness cannot be built on lies.